Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Brainwave. And today we're going to be checking out the first episode of the Ahsoka series, Master and Apprentice. And I gotta say, after watching this first episode, this series, is going to most likely be one of the best Star Wars shows that I think we've ever had. And I'm definitely very, very excited to see where this goes. So I'm going to be breaking this down, and we're going to start off with the Star Wars title card. In the beginning of these episodes, we see the Star Wars title card, and it is changed with a bunch of different droids and characters from Star Wars. One being Hu Yang, and the other one being Sabine Wren at the end, her mask, which is very, very nice because we do know that Sabine Wren was a Mandalorian and ended up joining the Rebels after that. So it's very, very exciting to see how this is playing out. But we continue off from that with the story being introduced. Now, normally in the original trilogy films, the story was introduced with yellow text going up at an angle. However, this text is red and going directly upward, showing how we know that the good guys are in control now, but we know a big blue man is coming to ruin that. So, you know, we do want to see the big blue man. But anyway, so then directly after that, we see a Star Cruiser in the shot after flying through space. Now, I will say I don't know exactly what kind of cruiser this is. I did a lot of the research uh, on this episode. On top of that, I did read the comments on the Ahsoka breakdown trailer as well. So don't worry, I am doing my research. However, if I do miss something, please feel free to tell me in the comments because I do want to make these breakdowns the best as I can. So, for now, this is a Star Cruiser in space, and this is actually a Star Cruiser that was also used by Admiral Ackbar in A New Hope, which it's very exciting to see this, and we can even see from the interior of the ship as well. But they talk about how they see an upcoming spaceship closing in on them, and their clearance code is actually one of a Jedi's. And that is what surprises them here because we know that this is the time where Luke Skywalker did destroy the Death Star, but there really weren't any other Jedi in existence. That's why they're very, very shocked to see that a Jedi clearance code still exists. So, of course, the captain's suspicious of this, and he's like, let's go check this out, right? So that's when we get to the hangar bay. And obviously, you can see these are the rebel suits here, which they look very, very accurate to the original trilogy, I must say. But out of the ship here, which I believe, I don't know what the ship is called exactly. Like I said, guys, when it comes to ship names, I'm okay. I did look up a lot of the ship names, so there is a little astromech on the side of the shot, though, which I do like. His is actually a yellow kind of color coding, which is nice. And we can see blue X-Wings in the background here. Blue X-Wings, and I believe there might be some Y-Wings as well. I can't really tell from the shot angle here. But most of these are blue X-Wings, and this may mean something related to the Blue Squad or Blue Squadron, I believe, is what that is called. But those might be linked to that as well, so we don't really know. But I do know that whatever this is a very, very important cruiser. And I think one of the reasons it's so important right now is because it's actually carrying Morgan S. Bell, I think is Morgan Espeth. Yes, there we go. Oh, no, Morgan Elsbeth. That's what it is. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not good with names. Most people know that. But I'm not good with names, but Morgan Elsbeth, if you guys don't know, is actually the person that Ahsoka fought in The Mandalorian. And this person actually had a Beskar spear that they ended up Ahsoka ended up fighting against. And at the end of this fight, when she defeats her, she asks about Grand Admiral Thrawn, who we're actually going to end up seeing in this series, which is phenomenal. Grand Admiral Thrawn is a very, very, very interesting Star Wars character, even from the books as well. He is very, very crazy. So the fact that we're seeing him is fantastic. But we continue on with the shot, and we see Balon and Shin come out of this ship. Now, in the comments of the last trailer breakdown, you guys mentioned that they're not Jedi and they're not Sith, which I actually did forget to mention because I did say there were Siths in my original breakdown, but I looked more into that, and their lightsabers are actually a color of orange, which was done intentionally to show that they're really on the fence here. They're like not Jedi, but they're not Sith. It's very, very weird. But it really just goes to show you how much detail they put into the show. But they start talking, and Balon says something on the lines of being being kind of like it's kind of this weird conversation, but he says he's a mystery to the captain, which the captain, of course, is questioning him because it's like, why are you here? Well, they question it, and Bylon keeps trying to avoid the questions. However, at some point, the captain starts to figure out what's going on, and eventually Bylon and Shin decide to pull out their lightsabers and absolutely obliterates every one of the guards here. And of course, he says the iconic line, "We are no Jedi." Now, this was said by Ahsoka in the finale of season 2 of Rebels as well, when she's having her fight with Darth Vader. And I really do love this line in Star Wars because it shows that it's like, yeah, sure, we may be force wielders, and we may not be Siths, but you still better be concerned. And that is the case here. Shin goes crazy here, and Bylon kind of just shows the captain that they are not messing around. And we continue on. They Shin goes all the way to the main bridge, while Bylon ends up going all the way to the cage where Morgan is being held. And on top of that, we even get this kind of like Darth Vader hallway scene, which is really, really cool. It's not identical, but we get the scene. Bylon gets to the cage, and he actually unlocks this door, which is very, very difficult to unlock normally because that is a lock that only astromechs can really unlock because of the fact that it's so complex. But it just goes to show you how wise Balon has become, and the fact that he has Jedi experience is insane. But of course, they free Morgan Espa, and then we cut to Ahsoka being on this wasteland, which this planet, if you guys are wondering, is called Arcana. And apparently, we find out later as Ahsoka is searching through these planets that it was created or basically designed by the Night Sisters of Dathomir. And if you guys don't know who the Night Sisters of Dathomir are, they are insanely powerful beings. Now, you actually may have seen them in the Clone Wars. The leader of the Night Sisters actually also being related to Maul and giving Maul his new legs, which they use the magic for. Asajj Ventress is also related to the Night Sisters as well. Savage was also at the Night Sisters at one point. So I'm really, really excited to see that they're bringing the Night Sisters in more into Star Wars, because you have the Jedi, you have the Sith, and then you have the Night Sisters, which are on the whole own playing field. So it's very, very interesting to see. But anyway, to continue with the scene, we see Ahsoka finding this underground part of the so-called ruins, and she drops down using the lightsaber technique that she actually used in that season finale of Rebels as well. I believe she uses it there. She also uses it in a bunch of other scenes as well. I think she uses it a bit in the Clone Wars, but she'll grab her lightsabers, use the Force, and draw a circle around the ground and basically fall through it. She did this with, I believe, in the Clone Wars as well, with Rex as well. So that's kind of her trick, and the trick is actually very, very good because you'll see that she uses it later when she has to fight these MK assassin droids, or I think it's HK. I think it's HK assassin droids, right? Am I not hold up? I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Yeah, HK assassin droids. I was right on that. It's not MK, it's HK. But we continue on the scene, and she is looking for something. And when she's doing this, she tries to solve a puzzle, which gets her this map device. Well, I don't know if this is a holocron. It could be a holocron, but it also could not be. It may just be something that the sisters of Dappamir um, kind of like created. I guess I don't really know because it's not really a holocron, but it's not really just a map either. So, but when she is opening this puzzle, it kind of looks similar to Cal Kestis in Fallen Order, which I'm just gonna say that right now because this kind of looks like a puzzle you would do in Fallen Order. Okay, I'm just gonna point that out. But we go to the scene and she finds it, and she actually, when she's taking it, she actually realizes there's this kind of dust around it. We don't know exactly what this dust is, but this actually seems to be the reason that later in the scene this planet actually just lights itself on fire after the explosions that happen. But we'll get more onto that when that scene comes. But she gets the map and she escapes. Now, when she does escape, she is met by the HK assassin droids. Now, these droids, I think they're carrying vibro staffs, I think. Or I don't know exactly what they're called. I think they're called, it's either electro or vibro staffs. But anyway, these staffs can actually deflect lightsaber shots. I think some of Grievous's droids also use these kind of staffs as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see because HK assassin droids are not the easiest thing to destroy. They're not a normal battle droid. So the fact that Ahsoka is able to maintain her own against five of them is crazy. But obviously, before they start the fight, Ahsoka pulls out her lightsabers, of course, them both being white, because of the fact that we saw in the Tales of the Jedi series that she actually ended up killing an Inquisitor very, very early on after uh, after Revenge of the Sith takes place. And once she takes on this Inquisitor and absolutely wrecks him, okay, she takes the lightsaber crystals from his lightsabers and purifies them, making them entirely white. So that's why she has the white lightsabers here, and they sound incredible. And she also has a Shoto blade as well as her normal lightsaber blade, and you can see how she actually goes on to use the holes in this temple, which is very, very smart because you could see that she drops back down into the temple and uses the lightsaber trick to drag all the HK assassin droids to separate them, which I think is such a smart idea. And then she gets them all separate and she ends up taking them all out. However, she doesn't take them out entirely because it turns out that when they realize they can't beat her, they basically use bombs that were planted in them internally, and basically they begin to self destruct. And this is kind of crazy because we know that, or we're assuming that whatever kind of like dust was on the planet, we know it's flammable from the next scene. And basically, whatever this trap was with the HK assassin droids, they knew what they were doing, which was kind of crazy. But anyway, she has to run away from the bomb charges now, and she has to run very, very far. And it's almost crazy how far she actually has to run. I'm assuming, I don't know if force speed's still a thing because we know we saw Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan use force speed in the Phantom Menace, but we don't really know if Ahsoka's using force speed. I think that's one of the things that Star Wars has never really established because force speed is a really, really weird kind of concept. It's kind of just, I'm assuming she uses some kind of force speed before Hu Yang picks her up, but I don't really know. It's very hard to tell from the scene, and that's kind of why it's so hard to distinguish. But anyway, as she is running, the ground basically incinerates itself, making the explosion radius a lot bigger than it actually was supposed to be, which is why I think that the bombs planted in those droids were fully intentional. But we can actually see Ahsoka running to her T6 Jedi shuttle. Um, this one has the wings that can actually turn, which is really, really nice. And picking her up, we finally get to see him again, Hu Yang. And if you guys don't know who Hu Yang is, this is actually the droid that was seen in the Clone Wars who helped young Padawans to design their lightsabers. And that's going to be a really key factor in the rest of this episode. So don't forget about that. That's going to be very, very huge. Very, 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 very huge. But we see Hu Yang, and he still follows the Jedi protocol, which we know Ahsoka isn't really a fan of. So it's kind of ironic that one still believes in the Jedi while the other is just like, yeah, whatever to the Jedi. But it's kind of crazy. But for now, we cut back to the scene of the ship with Bylon and Shin. They absolutely destroyed this ship. They absolutely destroyed the ship internally. And Ahsoka is flying onto the ship, and she meets up with the Rebel Alliance, and she finds Hera Zendula there, another part of the Ghost crew that was created in Rebels. So it's very, very cool to be introducing all these characters in this way. It's very, 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 very cool to see them all back together again, especially in live action, which is something we never thought we would get, but here we are. It is very fantastic to see that. But we head over to this main kind of hologram table where they look at the security tapes and they see Bylon and Shin on the projection, and uh, we could see them talking about how these Jedi's have a particular hilt. Now, they believe that one of them was once a Jedi. However, they don't know that yet. And they believe that they are after what Ahsoka has, this basically map holocron thing that we don't really know what it is yet. So they believe that they're after that. And, well, technically they call it a star map in the series. I feel like it's got to be some kind of hologram or like holocron. It just doesn't make sense. I feel like whatever it is, even if it's a star map, it's got to be some kind of holocron based design. So, but we continue on and we get to the suggestion where uh, Hara is basically saying to go to Sabine Wren, who might actually be able to crack the code on the star map. And Ahsoka's like, yeah, we shouldn't really do that because we kind of broke ties. But she is just like, you know what, just go. Might work out for the both of you. And that's what ends up happening. She goes to the planet in order to find Sabine Wren, and the planet is actually having a ceremony for the sacrifice that Ezra Bridger made, along with all the Ghost crew as well. And this is very, very ironic because this mural that was planted in one of the buildings of Rathal was actually painted in the Rebel series and looks identical to the way it did. And I'm so happy because in Lothal, we obviously know what happened. We know that Ezra Bridger sacrificed his life to get Thrawn away by using the Pergo whales. Uh, those are basically the hyperspace whales that I mentioned in the trailer breakdown. And he sacrificed his life to get them away, or to get Thrawn away. And they're actually made a day about this, which is really, really cool. But instead of being there to celebrate the day that they saved Lothal, Sabine Wren is going to the desert. And we can see that she actually gets chased out of the city on of Lothal on her speeder bike. Now, she's actually being chased by two E-wings, which we haven't really seen in Star Wars yet. I told you guys, I did my research. At least I tried to. But these are E-wing class shuttles, and these are really only seen in, I believe, novels. But the fact that they're introducing more kinds of ship designs to Star Wars is fantastic, because realistically, seeing this chase scene was fantastic. We see Sabine Wren is as stubborn as ever, and it really just goes to show here that she's really not scared of much, even though she's kind of feels regret for losing Ezra. She really isn't scared of many things, because even when this E class E wing class shuttle lands on the path out of Lothal, she literally just slides under it by disabling the I believe the I don't know if it's gravity. I don't know how that works. But she basically disables the speeder bike and slides directly under the ship, which is insane. And at this point they just back off, because they know that they're not gonna get her. And she actually ends up going to the watchtower that we ended up seeing in the Rebel series as well. And we can see a bunch of hints to the Rebel series here. We can see a bunch of how her room has a bunch of different like technology in it. I'm assuming this is where she stays. I don't know why she doesn't choose to live in the city of Lothal, but it's basically filled with a bunch of all this tech. We can even see some spray paints on the side of the wall. One where she X'd out a sign with the stormtroopers, and we can also see a bunch of others on the wall as well that look to be the same thing. Those might be like maybe I don't know why she has so many of them. It's kind of awkward because there's one gigantic one, and then we see six mini ones on the side, which we can only assume to be the exact same thing because they have the same color shading. So I don't really know how she like painted those on there, or like why, but I do like the design of this room. And we can also see the Loth cat that they actually ended up getting or finding in the Rebels series. And it's kind of crazy to see that it's still she still has it, really, because that cat they found. I believe they found that Loth cat a while ago in the Rebel series. I think they've kept it for the longest time, which is really, really, really weird. I don't know why they decided to keep it, but that is cool. So, I mean, you can't really abandon that very cute looking Loth cat, can you? But she feeds the Loth cat, and she looks under one of the desks, realizing that she still has her armor there. And I think it's kind of haunting almost, because she looks at it and just completely ignores it. But what she does find is she goes under the table, grabs a box, and opens a holocron with Ezra Bridger on it. Now, I don't know exactly where this was from. I was told that this was in the Rebels series, and that it was recorded in the Rebel series, and Sabine Wren has just kept it. I also believe it might be something else as well. I don't really know. I will be able to figure that out though. I'm 95% sure that it's from the Rebel series though. So, but that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. The other is how good Ezra looks. Ezra looks fantastic in this shot. Obviously, we can't see his character fully yet, but his character in this hologram looks really, really good. And it's kind of crazy to see that. But after we have that scene, we cut back to Shin, Balon, and Morgan on the planet, and they are looking for the map, but they can't find it. They know Ahsoka got to it, and Morgan is actually confessing the fact that she is a part of the Night Sisters of Dathomir, which is crazy because we didn't know Morgan was a Night Sister until just now. So she could have used some kind of magic in the fight that Ahsoka initially had with her, but I guess she chose not to. I don't know if that was for a specific reason, but I'm assuming she only learned very, very little magic. Well, she actually asked one of them to go to Lothal and to find Sabine Wren, who is obviously an accomplice that Ahsoka has worked with. And it's very, very ironic because Ahsoka is going there as well. So she leaves, and we can actually see a shot of this new Inquisitor. This Inquisitor, of course, we know that Vader was already killed, and his Inquisitors should be as well. But one of them seems to have survived, and this Inquisitor is called Morak. We don't know anything much about the Inquisitor. We can assume who it is. I think I might talk about that later as well, but I don't really know who it is yet. There's a bunch of theories going around, but for now we don't know who this person is. But we're gonna assume that whoever this is, they have a strong connection to Ahsoka. So then we cut back to Lothal, and we see Sabine Wren having these basically nightmares, which are still haunting her, which is almost kind of creepy in a way because that happened such a long time ago. She gets called back to the city of Lothal because she sees this T6 shuttle, and finally she meets up with Ahsoka Tano in the same building that actually ended up getting destroyed, the main building of the city of Lothal. So they meet up, and essentially she only says hello to Hu Yang, who's apparently has 75% of his original parts still left, which is kind of insane for a droid because having 75% of their original parts, that's wild. Okay, if a droid is dealing with the Jedi, this droid should not have. Well, I mean, C3PO, for example. C3PO has gone through it. This guy, he's got the easy life. But she meets up with Hu Yang, but she doesn't really acknowledge Ahsoka being there. I mean, obviously you could tell, but the only reason Ahsoka is even talking about this is because she believes she has a way to find Ezra. And obviously, we know that Sabine Wren's been haunted by this, and we even saw from the dreams that she's been having that she wants to find Ezra, really. And that's what this is really going to be about because not only do they want to stop Thrawn, but they want to find Ezra. They really, really do. And that's why they are using this star map to do that. So they go into the T6 shuttle, and I gotta say, this shuttle is a lot bigger than I thought it was. I mean, I never seen the T6 shuttle before, but this is a big, big shuttle. This is almost abnormal size. This is kind of crazy. But yeah, so they continue, and she's looking around the shuttle, and she finds a bunch of stuff. One of the things that Sabine Wren actually ends up finding is the set of bunk beds that Ezra actually used, and he's got a bunch of these drawings, which might actually hold up. That might actually be the reason she got all like the stormtrooper things that I mentioned before. Because she has a lot of spray painted stormtroopers on our watchtower, but all of these drawings, we could see one of the Loth cat. We could see a TIE fighter by the looks of it on top. So these are all things that Ezra ended up kind of just drawing. But we continue on through the ship, and Ahsoka meets up with her again, and they talk about Ezra actually being alive. However, it doesn't seem to be Ahsoka's main focus. It's kind of obviously that's the reason Sabine Wren's here, right? But the main reason Ahsoka's here is because she would love to find Ezra, but she wants to stop this war because she'll know what will happen if she doesn't. And they talk about how it was a strong Arcana was a stronghold for the witches of Dathomir. So it's kind of weird because they are the knights. They mentioned in Clone Wars they're the Night Sisters of Dathomir, but she mentions they're the witches of Dathomir. It's kind of weird. I think they can be interchanged there, but she asks Sabine Wren to try and locate the patterns in this star map. And before she does, she asks if she can see the layout of the place, which is really, really weird. But it does make sense for the Night Sisters because they really were people that kept things hidden, very, very hidden, right? So the fact that you would need the setting of the place would probably be important. But before she starts solving this, she asks if she can take it with her somewhere where she'll have more equipment. And Ahsoka's like, yeah, no, you can't do that. The ship is fine. You can stay here, right? And she's like, but it will help me concentrate. And she's like, no, you should stay here, right? But of course, they talk a little bit more, and they talk about Ahsoka actually leaving her, which was kind of crazy because they're still like again, this is a decent amount of time later, and they're still on about what Sabine Red and Ahsoka's fallout really was. And I think later in this episode, we're going to see some of the things that Ahsoka actually taught Sabine Wren, but whatever it seemed to be, it had to do with mainly her not kind of wanting or not like giving her all to it, I guess, which is kind of hard because something like trying to learn how to master the Jedi arts is not an easy task. It's very not, especially with a lightsaber as well. Learning how to use a lightsaber is not easy, especially for a person that's not really force sensitive. So it makes it a lot more difficult. But Hu Yang interrupts this conversation and he talks about the lightsaber hilts of the Siths. And they talk about how the Sith's lightsabers are actually uh or not the Siths, by the way, not the Siths. I don't know what to call them. That's my thing. I don't really know what to call them. The Force users. Okay, we're gonna call them the Force users. Okay, but the Force users, their lightsabers are specially designed hilts. Hu Yang says he doesn't know one of the hilts, but he knows the other one because Bylon's hilt is actually was actually designed with Hu Yang himself because Bylon was a youngling in the Jedi Temple who Hu Yang actually helped to design his lightsaber. So he actually ends up memorizing this and they get an identification. And it actually and they actually figure out that this is now a battle between a master and an apprentice and a master and an apprentice. So that's where the title comes from, of course. And it makes it a lot more intense because now Ahsoka's got to deal with an apprentice and she's got to deal with Balon, which is crazy. But of course, she leaves the room to tell Sabine Wren, and yeah, and she's gone. Yep, kind of knew it. Of course, she would have been gone. But one thing I do actually like about the scene, since the table does collapse into the floor, the cup is still on the ground. It's kind of funny. But Sabine Wren obviously takes her speeder out to the watchtower again. But instead of her being alone this time, she's actually tracked by, you guessed it, a probe droid. Yes, we do love to see the probe droid because that is exactly what Maul did to Qui-Gon Jinn and Anakin in The Phantom Menace. And there's a bunch of deleted scenes where Qui-Gon actually finds out that they're being followed by a probe droid as well. So it's very, very interesting, right? And you know what's ironic about this as well is that there's a lot of ties to The Phantom Menace. A lot of ties. And that's probably showing how Ahsoka and her Padawan is like Qui-Gon Jinn, and he was Qui-Gon Jinn and Anakin, who was supposed to be his Padawan, which is, of course, the ties there. But we see the probe droid, and of course, it's Shin, and we can see that Sabine Wren goes to her watchtower, gets all this equipment, and tries to decipher this star map, and she ends up actually doing it by looking at the statues here. But before we get to see what she does, we cut back to Ahsoka and Hera Zendula talking on the hologram, and she's like, "I don't think coming here was a good idea because now she's gone. Now she's gone with the map." And Hera is trying to stick up for her, of course, because she wants them to get along because she believes that they can defeat these or get more evidence on these plans if they work together. And that's what she's kind of trying to do here. But of course, Ahsoka was wishing that she had changed a little. And it's kind of ironic because, like I said, I know I keep bringing this up. This has been the span for. This has gone on for a decent amount of time. This is a decent amount of time, but since the Rebels and Ahsoka, and they are still almost the same. Ahsoka, of course, has learned a lot more, has become wiser. Sabine Wren, although it doesn't seem like it, she's learned a lot more. So it's a matter of, are they willing to change to work together, or are they just going to stay the same way? So it's very, very crazy. But after this conversation they have, we can see them actually talking about Anakin Skywalker. We know Anakin Skywalker is going to show up in this series, and maybe a younger version of Ahsoka, right? And she talks about how Anakin never finished her training. He said, and she said that she walked away from the Clone Wars before it had ended. And of course, that's the scene from Clone Wars where she's accused of the temple bombing. And it's kind of very, very similar. There's a lot of ties, a lot of ties, because Qui-Gon Jinn, who was supposed to teach Anakin Skywalker, did not end up teaching Anakin Skywalker. Right? Ahsoka did never really ended up fully teaching Sabine Wren, and Sabine Wren, or well, Anakin technically walked away from the Order, even though realistically he slashed his way out of the Order with his lightsaber, and those children in the council room. But Ahsoka kind of just Sabine Wren kind of just walked out too. Sabine Wren and Ahsoka kind of just walked out on it, which is kind of insane because it makes you question: is this Jedi Order really that fitting? But we continue on. Sabine Wren is still trying to figure out this puzzle, and she finally figures it out. And I believe it has something kind of to do with the kind of the layouts on this little like shroud on the bottom, this kind of little shape at the bottom. I don't know exactly what that's meant to represent. The I will say though, the symbol does look very very similar to the designs of the World Between Worlds, which we might actually see in the series because we know Ahsoka and Ezra ended up getting stuck in the World Between Worlds, and since Palpatine was trying to get there too, they ended up having to escape Palpatine in the World Between Worlds. So we might see some ties between that as well. So hopefully we do. But we continue on. She gets the puzzle unlocked, but right as she is about to find out where Ezra is, she gets attacked by the HK assassin droids, who she actually deals with pretty well, especially since these are droids designed to assassinate high ranking fighters. However, the droid ends up getting the map and destroys literally everything on the watchtower. So Sabine Wren's getting held, but she ends up getting out using the droid's blaster. She ends up trying to get to the other droid, who gets to the elevator first, and she calls for Hu Yang for backup, and Ahsoka and Hu Yang are on their way to the watchtower. So she goes back to the room, right? And she actually grabs something out of the out of the crates under her desk, and it is Ezra's lightsaber. Now we know Ezra's had a few different lightsaber designs in Rebels, but this is his green lightsaber, which we know Sabrine's going to be using a lot more. So I'm very excited to see her use this lightsaber, and it turns out we're about to see her use it right now against Shin. And we know this fight is definitely going to be lopsided because Shin is being trained by a Jedi Master, and she's force sensitive, and she's trained in the ways of the Jedi. Sabine Wren is not force sensitive, has only been trained limited, and does not have any Mandalorian armor. So we know where this is going, but this fight actually does. She actually like survives against Shin for a decent amount of time. So they start the duel, and you can see that Sabine Wren's using very basic kind of movements with the lightsaber. Shin is kind of flowing fluently, while she's kind of stuttering, like kind of staggering every time she uses it. And that's kind of the difficulty of learning how to use a lightsaber without the force, because now you have to learn how to balance your movements, right? Sabine Wren has mastered that, and she seems to be getting the hold of her, but she ends up holding her own for a decent amount of time. But of course, Sabine Wren is basically throwing her around like crazy. Ahsoka is just about to reach her, but during the fight, Sabine goes after her. They clash with the lightsabers one more time. So Shin almost gets her to the ground entirely, knocks her back with one of the strongest lightsaber strikes I think I've ever seen, because to throw someone back like that is crazy. The HK droid warns her that Ahsoka's on her way, so she decides, let's finish this fight quick. Let's finish this fight quick, and just gets her with the stab here. And let's take a moment to say rest in peace to Qui-Gon Jinn, because he's fuming. Okay? Sabine Wren just gets stabbed right here. Okay? Okay? She just gets obliterated. I think this is what? Like, this is through her stomach. This Okay, this is literally through her stomach here. Okay? And we know from trailer shots she does survive this, right? But it's insane to see Qui-Gon and Savage Opress are literally these two people to ever die from a stab wound ever. Okay, everyone else has lived. Okay, you saw Rava in Obi-Wan, who just gets stabbed 50 times and doesn't die. Okay, so I don't know how that didn't happen. The Inquisitor gets stabbed, doesn't die, but that's justified because he's got two stomachs. Um, then you see the other person. I think there's a bunch of other people that get stabbed and don't die. I mean, it's crazy. So rest in peace to Qui-Gon. Savage, you're there, but you got stabbed twice, so that doesn't really count. But Sabine Wren gets stabbed, and by the way, I think this scene right after, I think this is her either one trying to defend her life or two being desperate. Okay, because think about this: we know Sabine Wren really wants to find Ezra, so the fact that she's still swinging her lightsaber like frantically, even though she's like on the ground, even though Shin's not attacking her anymore, is really, 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 uh, it's just really wild because she really is that desperate to find Ezra. But of course, she got stabbed by a lightsaber, and that is where the episode ends. And my god, is this series going to be fantastic? I already don't need to like assume anything. The series, it's going to be fantastic. Okay, I already tell you everything with the details, the lightsaber fighting in that first shot, Ahsoka's connections to everyone in this series is going to be crazy. And this is only episode 1. Episode 2, I've already watched, and episode 3 I'm going to watch after I make this video, which is ironic. But yeah, it's going to be insane. And yeah. So on top of that, I am working towards trying to get the images of the show episode on screen. So hopefully I can get that to work. Ziltion and me are actually working on that as well. We're doing our research. Ziltion, hopefully we can get him in some of these future breakdown videos. That's going to be exciting. He may show up in some of them. I think either the third or the second one he might show up in. We don't know yet, but it's going to be very, very exciting. I know this was a little bit longer than most breakdowns that I've done. The Secret Invasion breakdown, that was quick, okay, right? But I wanted to try a new method of breaking down the series, and I feel like it was a lot thorough. Even though it was a lot longer, it was a lot more thorough. And especially for me, I'm a fan of Marvel. Okay, I personally am a man that knows a lot more about Marvel than about Star Wars. But I do really love Star Wars, and I want to break down these episodes for you guys. And that's why I'm encouraging you to tell me. If there's anything I missed, let me know. I want to break down these episodes and know exactly what I'm looking at. Okay? And I will. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to do a lot more. And I appreciate you guys being patient because I love Star Wars, and this Ahsoka series is going to be fantastic. So, with that being said, appreciate all of you guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in the next breakdown.